I get to go first, I guess, because I'm in the middle. And this is where I usually wind up at all of these events. In the middle, a lot of times we do dialogues and have conversations about Israel and Palestine, about the things going on in the Middle East. And the Catholic gets to be the moderator. And when we do those things, one of the things that I notice that keeps occurring over and over again, and one of the reasons why I feel it's important to meet with people, is the whole concept of being able to accept each other, to listen to each other, to talk with each other, and to do a step above tolerance. A lot of people just tolerate people. And it's like they give them the time of day, but they don't really care. So I try to get the bridge to go a little further. My work predominantly is in the Archdiocese of Newark, so it's the four counties of Hudson, Bergen, Essex, and Union, and work predominantly with Catholic schools, Catholic school teachers, religious ed people, and dealing with all the issues that come up when kids have their thoughts predominantly formed by the news media that they see today and that they listen today, and finding that there's a large insurgence of prejudice again. When I grew up, I'm one of these people who turned 60 finally. I remember there was a show, All in the Family. Archie Bunker was kind of the role model of what most of our parents were like. There was a certain amount of prejudice that you were taught. I lived in the Catholic ghetto of Hudson County, and there was a large Jewish community there. The Muslims were non-existent as far as we knew at that point. And when the Muslims moved in, everybody was suspect. And it was each group moves in, you're suspect. So grew up grappling with this. I have a family that's multi-religious. I have a sister whose last name is Rosen. You wanted to see that cause confusion for my grandfather. And then to find out that he was Sicilian made it even more confusing. So, you looked at things in life and you said, how do we deal with things that'll make it such that people learn to listen? One of the things that I try to teach people to do is how to respond to issues rather than react to issues. A lot of times people do knee-jerk reactions to situations rather than stopping, listening, talking, and working. So that's like just my preliminary for you, and we're hoping to hear questions from you, because really to deal with this issue of discrimination and cultural issues, we need to know what's going on in your scenes. Rabbi.
So I want to thank everyone for being here, and thank Father Phil and Mr. Filali for sharing this with me. I've been in the Princeton community for 10 years, but I grew up in the New Jersey public schools. So I remember at my times, during my teen years, certain religious issues or discrimination issues that came up. And I don't know if my administrators at that time took the time to be at a seminar like you are, but I think it's great that you're here. My wife is an attorney, and she has to do continuing legal education. I understand it's essentially what you are. I think clergy should be required also. We're not necessarily, but with the fact that you're here together and able to have this seminar, I think is very helpful. A few thoughts to share with you from the Jewish perspective in discrimination issues in the public schools. The first may be obvious, but I want to state it anyway. I think it's extremely important that you have a relationship with the clergy in your community. Get to know them, share with them any challenges you have, develop a friendship and a basis for a relationship so that you can respond when something does come up. The local superintendent in Princeton schools started this past year, invited a few of us of the clergy to meet with him. We had a wonderful conversation, and we were ready, because I'm going to tell you in a minute about a challenge that came up, but we were able to face that challenge because we already knew each other. He was able to call me at 10 o'clock on Monday morning when something happened over the weekend, but we were already friends, and we had that basis, and we could cut through a lot of things to address that issue. Before I get to some specifics, I just want to share that the Jewish issues, from my perspective, the anti-Semitism of yesteryear has really become an anti-Israel of today. There's lots of cultural issues, lots of things that we can share from our own religious perspective, but what I've seen is issues and stories of people making anti-Israel comments, postings, because we realize today we're talking about not just what happens in the school, what's happening online, what the students are posting, what they're seeing, and many of stories that I remember from when I was a kid are not about anti-Semitism like they were then, but it's really about Israel attacking and Israel bashing. And just to be aware of that and be ready to share that with the clergy. The other issue from a Jewish perspective, I think it's important to think about is the observance of Jewish holidays. Obviously every student, every family has their own observance level, but those students that are more observant of the holidays may need special accommodations. To be aware of when the holidays are, and not just the holidays that you've heard about, but some of the less known holidays. I see it as my responsibility, actually I haven't done this in a little while, I need to do it again, but to send out the list of Jewish holidays to all the school districts in my area, so that they're aware of the holidays. You can find them online, you should be able to find, if you want more information I can tell you, but there are certain holidays that some students observe to the point that they won't be going to school. That's where my observance was as a child. So I needed accommodations. I needed to tell my teachers in advance, about missing tests. And those accommodations should be made. So just to get a list of those holidays, I can share them with you, or tell you online where to get them, but whether it's for students or for teachers, just to be aware of those holidays and those observances. I want to give you an example of two things that I faced, and then, as we said, and we want to hear from you, specific things that happened in your community you want to ask us about. Story number one, my area, I'm the rabbi in Princeton, but we have 5 or 6 different school districts where students come from. And the story I'm about to tell you was not from Princeton, it was from another school district. I don't want to tell you which one, but I just want to make sure you know it was not in Princeton. Keep that in mind, Barbara. But a parent came to see me because in the 7th grade class of their child, they were studying world history. And the parent was very concerned because in the world history class, in addition to getting into the history of religion, it got into some more details about religious philosophy. And that many times it's the parents that are more concerned than the students. I think we all understand that. But the parent was very concerned with what was happening in the 7th grade class and wanted me to go in and speak to the teacher that this shouldn't be happening in the school. Well, I have a basic philosophy. I don't want to ever have to go into the school, especially uninvited. Right? It's not good when the rabbi shows up at the school. Nobody wants that. Right? So I sat with the mother and we talked about a strategy where I basically called a friend of mine who's the Presbyterian minister in town. And he and I sat with the mother together and we came up with a plan. And mom went, basically first what we tried to do was give mom the language so mom knew what to say. And mom did that. She went in and spoke to the teacher. But then it got to a point where we realized we did need to come, and the mother checked with the teacher and the department head, would it be okay if we all sat down and had a conversation, and that's what we did. So we sat down together, we looked at the textbook. Clearly it was based on the textbook, but I said, in my opinion, I think this goes beyond where the public schools should go. Right? What I said is, I think it's important that schools teach, and teach history, and teach all those things, but when it gets to a level of religious education, I think that's better in the houses of worship, not in the schools. And sitting there together and having a calm conversation and looking at the textbook, we realized that that textbook probably went too far, and I think the plan was to not use that textbook so much in the future, or to maybe eliminate that chapter and have a conversation about it. But again, it was a cordial conversation that we all had together. It wasn't that the clergy came in and demanded anything, but it was, again, we had that relationship, we had that conversation, and it went much better. The other issue that I want to tell you about happened over about a month ago. This did happen in Princeton. An 8th grade student in the local middle school posted a very harsh anti-Israel, anti-Semitic posting on his Instagram account. Now, he has the right to put what he wants on his own Instagram account, but the other students in the community saw it, parents saw it, and it led to a big uproar in my town. Parents got together for what they called an emergency meeting on Sunday evening. Luckily, I had a conflict, so I couldn't be at that emergency meeting because I thought it was important that parents meet on their own. Again, you don't need to bring the rabbi in. You're the parents of the district. You have a role. I gave them certain language and certain things to consider. They sent a letter. I think the posting was sometime Friday or Saturday. The parents' meeting was Sunday night. They sent what I thought was a very appropriate letter that I saw a copy of to the principal of the middle school and to the superintendent of the schools. And this was the story I was referring to before. The superintendent, at some point Monday morning, walked into his office, saw that email, and called me by 10 o'clock and said, Adam, I need your help. Well, we had that conversation because of that foundation. And I was able to share with him some other information that he didn't have because I knew some of the parents. We got, the posting was there and then was taken down within about 24 hours. But some of the parents still had access to it, so I was able to get him access. He saw who else responded. And the superintendent and the principal handled it very well. They sat with the student and the parents of that student to talk about the issue. Clearly, the student was not speaking just for themselves. Clearly, they were educated by other people. The language was far on a higher level than any 8th grader would have been able to write. But the superintendent sat with the parents and discussed and basically said to them what he said to me. What you did was not illegal, but you need to understand the reactions that people are going to have. And that's the kind of thing we don't want in the school. He didn't threaten anybody. There was no direct attack. But it was made pretty clear that the reaction, they shared with the students what the reactions were and how he made other people feel uncomfortable and people were concerned. And as often is the case, within about 72 hours, the issue was done on the student level. I think some parents are still upset about it, but that's often the case, and we understand that. But it basically was handled very well. Everyone talked to each other. They spoke to, what the superintendent wanted from me was who else reacted. So he wanted to know what other students were concerned and were upset, and they spoke to all of those students, again, within a couple days, and the parents, and things were handled very well. That's our world today. We understand social media. We understand that people can say almost anything, but we need to be ready and have that conversation. So the parents, eventually calm down, but we're just more aware of those issues. So these are the kinds of things that I raise with you because, again, we're going to hear from you particular things that may happen in your district, but as you can hear, it's the conversations and it's the cooperation amongst the clergy and the partnership the clergy can have with the school administrators, I think can address those issues. So that's it for now. I want to hear from Mr. Filali, but we'll be open to any questions or concerns that you want to raise with us in a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. Mohamed Filali from CARE. Previously from the Islamic Center of Passaic County. In my previous life, I wore the hat of outreach. Hence, I met Father Phil way before 2001. And opening the channels of dialogue are extremely crucial for the Muslim community. As diverse as it is, we still need to open channels of communication with other faiths around us. I partner with Christian of many denominations as well as Jewish to address particular issues. The topic of discussion today, and I echo some of what the Rabbi has mentioned and Father Phil as well, and I think it's extremely important for the superintendent and the administration to open the avenues of dialogue to make sure that we don't react and we are not just there to put fires down, but a lot more to open avenues of discussion and make sure that the issues are known. Electronic postings are, of course, of a concern to all people, especially young men and women, knowing that they have access to the computer and they sometimes know that their parents are not as tech savvy as they are, and sometimes they will put things that would raise eyebrows if they were to apply for a job and for them to be seen by their parents or their peers. So I think it's extremely important for schools to educate the kids as to what is allowed in terms of, general. You could post your pictures from your trip and say about your football game, whatever the case might be. But when discriminating against a person because of race, religion, sex, or whatever the case might be, that's a red line that we should be cautious. Even though there is no defamation, there is no threat of attacking someone, but still we need to be cautious of other people's needs and requirements. Certain curriculums, as the Rabbi has mentioned, and you will see a lot of similarities here. Certain curriculums are a little bit biased, especially as the Muslim community is growing. It is the fastest growing one in the United States and different parts of the world as well. It is the most diverse. So you are a group of people, if you were to wear hijab, named John, Steve, and Maria, and Stephanie, you'll be a Muslim. And there are kids in your classroom or in your school districts that will be named Jacob and Isaac and, you see Isaac? You have to provoke Isaac, of course. Isaac and Ishmael, whatever the name might be, they will be Muslim. We have most diverse ethnic backgrounds. There's African American natives, Latinos, Chinese, Portuguese, name it, will be within the Muslim community. And they are throughout the state. There is not one particular area that has exclusively the Muslim community and everybody is residing there. Great majority is in north part of the states, though there is great pockets of Muslim community here in the central part of Jersey as well and the southern part as well. Some of the concerns for the Muslim community is prayers. Prayers are done 5 times a day. So the first one I did this morning at 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. And that's usually when the kids at 10 years old, they are required to pray. So they will do it at home, the very first one. The second one happens around noontime, in the winter time. And the third one is at 2:15. It's best not to combine the 2 and second and third prayer if they are allowed. So what we request of school districts is to allow certain spaces for the students to pray on their own. It's usually a silent prayer that will not last more than 15 minutes if combined. In the winter time is a particular issue because by the time they get home is the 4th prayer, around 4:30 in the afternoon. That's when sunset happens. So we're required, the kids are required to pray on time. We would recommend for the school district at least to be aware of that need and to make for the special accommodations. And I'll speak from area of practicality in certain parts of North Jersey where the student will initiate the request to pray. Some librarians will allow them a little space in the library. They will wash up beforehand and they will use the time either before or after the lunch break, 5 minutes, and they will go and do their prayers, and they are back in school. They don't have to shout out loud. They don't necessarily have to pray in front of others. You could be in the corner of someone's office, guidance counselor, or in the library. Co-ed mixing, and that's probably something shared with different branches of Judaism. Men and women at certain age are not allowed to display their beauty. So girls probably at the age of 11 are not strongly recommended to do their gym classes in front of others. The swimming classes at that age will be extremely iffy. So sometimes I know there are certain accommodations for the team to swim, boys by themselves and girls by themselves, and sometimes certain gym classes are co-ed, so at a certain age we recommend for the parents to get a note from their local mosque to say that, you know, we are not to do certain squats or jumps or whatever in front of others. Certain girls at a certain age wear hijab. Hijab is the face covering, and that does not require any accommodation, a lot more than just certain notes to the teacher. My 7-year-old on her own this year in 2nd grade decided to start wearing hijab in the morning because her mother wears hijab. So she went to school. School is Elmwood Park, where I live. And her teacher was not aware of what the hijab is all about. So one of the students made the remark, "You look weird." So she came back all a little bit stressed. "I look weird." You know, of course, at that age with little girls, she would want to be part of the entire group. So I went and I spoke to the teacher. I said, you know, you may want to address it on your own. Didn't make a big fuss to go to the principal or the superintendent, because certain things are done in the soft avenue a lot more than, you know, I'm the father, I require for you to do X, Y, Z, a lot more than the student is not aware of what the hijab is all about. And I told the teacher that this is the requirement if you want to say something to the class, and for a little girl not to be bullied either by the peers or by the administration, for you just to say, you know, this is different look of a little girl. This is what Muslim women would wear, and sometimes they start at an early age. Curriculum is of an issue. Especially we are in the Northeast. Our emotions from September 11, and trust me, all of us, all of our emotions, including the people in the Muslim community, are extremely raw. So whenever September 11th comes in, we still feel the pain. Certain curriculums or certain approaches to the curriculum when addressing the 9/11 anniversary need to be a little bit refined, if I want to use that term. Refined, and also when addressing the Muslim tradition, either in social studies or world history, it doesn't hurt for us to also educate the educators as to what are some of the principles of Islam. I know I have done it in certain districts where the entire teacher's body and administration was present. I did sensitivity training to that group of people, so they in turn will know how to deal with their students, with their parents, and what have you. Bullying of minorities, that remains a major issue, but I think bullying across the board is a very serious issue in the state of New Jersey and the United States. But we have seen a rise of bullying amongst Muslims, especially when now not only the social media are filled with Islamophobic statements, but even the mainstream media filled, and even some politicians talking about the Muslims being X, Y, and Z. Sometimes, sadly, it reflects in the conduct that the students will have towards their peers. I'm quite certain I missed something, but we'll address it with your questions, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity.